Everybody, please continue enjoying your lunches, which I erroneously said today was pasta and turned out to be something else, but I hope you like it. It's always a good lunch here. Connie, welcome.
Thank you.
Since I was bad-mouthing Ohio about tornadoes, I guess I should start by asking, have you been in one?
I have not been in one, and I'm glad you learned to ride a bike in Ohio, because you can only do that in the Midwest, you know.
Oh, so I can't ask you whether you're more afraid of tornadoes or flying.
I'm finally used to flying because I'm so exhausted most of the time I don't even think of being up in the air anymore.
So is that the antidote?
I'm still scared of tornadoes.
Okay.
Yes, fatigue. Fatigue is a great thing if you have fear of flying.
Well, or falling in love with a politician, right?
Yeah, it helps to be a little sleepy if you do that too.
There was so much solidarity on every page as you talked about flying, and she actually had a rule for her husband that he could not fly on any small planes.
Right, none of those prop planes, you know, the private prop planes. But
that politicians get killed in.
Well, and Wellstone had been killed the previous year before I started dating Sherrod, so that was still fresh in my head. And some of you may remember the New York Times ran a sidebar of how many politicians have died in those small planes. So it was the only thing I asked of him. Well, not the only thing, but it was one of the bigger promises I asked him.
We'll get to the others later in the lunch. But you did ask him that. Now, now that he's a senator, does the same rule apply?
Yes.
Or do you get better, smaller planes?
No, he can. I sound like his mother. He can go on these kind, and he can go on that. He goes on private. We fly commercial all the time.
Right, right.
If it's on something with the Democratic Party, it's a jet.
Right.
So no, none of the small.
And it won't apply. I guess that's the perk of the big job. You get Air Force One, and you figure they know what they're doing.
He's not on that.
Not
typically.
yet.
No.
Not right now.
It hasn't been the plan. I keep having to remind people, not the plan.
Well, but you know, maybe he'll have a friend in the White House eventually.
That would work. Sure.
Which is my kind of segue into some of the politics today that Hillary Clinton, according to an ABC poll, has got a 33-point lead. Does that surprise you?
It exhilarates me. And aside from what party she belongs to, I've waited a long time for this moment in history. And I'm not surprised that she keeps gaining, actually, because I think the more people get to actually know her, the more popular she's going to be.
It says that she leads in every possible category in which they polled, especially healthcare, which I know is important to you.
Yes.
That she has something like, I don't know, a 66% lead among the other Democratic candidates on healthcare. Do you endorse her health plan?
What I endorse is that she's learned a lot from the mistakes she made in the 90s. And I think what those polling numbers indicate to me is the American public, for the most part, is willing to cut her that as well, that she learned how not to do it.
Yeah.
And I do endorse her plan. I think it's, they're not that different one from the other, actually, in terms of Edwards, Obama, and Clinton. But I look at Senator Clinton's experience in health care, and I'm very confident about the plan she's got in place right now.
Knowing what you know about politics, and not just as a columnist, but as, you know, married into it, does it worry you when a politician is this far out ahead, this far away from the, I mean, does a big lead scare you?
You know, the thing about Hillary Clinton's candidacy is that she's unprecedented in so many respects, especially this is the first time we've ever had a viable woman candidate for president. I mean, think about what it's like to be a 10-year-old girl in this country right now. Regardless of what your political leanings are, imagine being 10 years old and seeing that we now have a woman president of Harvard, we have a woman Speaker of the House, and we have a woman who's a leading candidate for the Democratic Party running for the presidency. So it's so unprecedented. I don't know what the polling means yet. I don't know if it's traditionally going to turn, you know, if it's going to turn out the way it traditionally does, where they say you don't want to be in the front this early. I think when you're Hillary Clinton, you do want to be ahead this early.
Is this the same as saying she's your candidate?
Well, all right, a disclaimer, I always have to make clear, this is not Sherrod speaking. He's trying to stay out of the primaries, but I've been saying it a lot lately because I keep getting asked, and yeah, I really hope she's the nominee, and I expect to be talking about Madam President and writing about it for the next 4 years.
And how do you think Ohio is going to go this time around?
It's really up for grabs yet. Ohio's called the bellwether state for a reason. It's really, Ohio's really 5 different areas. We call it the 5 Ohio's. You know, and up in northern Ohio, I have no concern about how Hillary Clinton will do.
Right.
I spent a lot of time last year in southern Ohio, down in Appalachia, and I'm not sure yet how that's going to go. Although I'll tell you, I got standing room only crowds often, and here I was, this unknown to them, clearly a career woman, clearly a woman with her own opinion, paid to give it until the campaign started. And it wasn't about what I did for a living. It was that I was willing to meet with women and listen to them. Which, by the way, I want to thank all of you for being here today and listening to me. I can't help but notice it's predominantly women, and which makes you men very special. By the way,
we get a nice mix.
Yeah, but thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Another interesting thing this week is the campaign of Ron Paul, who's the Republican Libertarian, and he. It was reported has raised $5 million in the last quarter, which is not chump change in the Republican campaign, because not Giuliani, but McCain has raised only $5 million during the same period of time. And Ron Paul is running pretty much on one issue, the war.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about that issue?
That tells me that the war is going to drive much of these campaigns. And when you look at the polling, of course it should. When you look at last year, in Ohio and around the country. Last year, until towards the very end of the campaign, the top 3 issues constantly were jobs, healthcare, and education. And then towards the end, the war started to really heat up again. And Ohio's 5th in the number of people we've lost in this war. So that number, that rank has not changed. That's not a rank you really want to have. No, it is not.
State,
and when I look at my mail, whenever I write about the war, especially from conservatives who can disagree with me on so many other issues, they make it quite clear that they're in agreement with me on this war.
Right.
So that tells me that we have, all the polling that shows it, I think it is real about the shift in this country, and we've got an administration that just refuses to listen at this point.
Assuming, if Hillary gets the nomination, do you have any thoughts on who you'd like to see as a running mate?
I don't. Anna Quinlan, she came out for the Obama-Clinton ticket.
In that order?
No, Clinton Obama, excuse me. I don't. I really leave that up to her to decide. I am so excited about her candidacy, and quite frankly, we've got such a long presidential campaign this time, which I'm not complaining about. I wish Americans paid this much attention all the time to who was leading the country.
Exciting race does galvanize the vote. Hypothetical, your husband hangs up the phone and he says, "Honey, that was Hillary. She wants me to be her running mate."
I'd remind you about his other promise.
And that was?
As Sherrod puts it, you can't be a great senator if you've always got one eye on the White House. And I don't want him to do this. And there's a lot of speculation on that, but there's always speculation about the new guys coming in. Who could be a possible vice presidential running mate. I don't think it would be Sherrod this time around anyway, because he's such a progressive. And they would be looking to try to balance it. But also he has said he doesn't want to be vice president. He doesn't want to run for president. He wants to be a great senator.
Yeah, politicians say things all the time.
Not to this wife, they don't.
I have visions of you going, "Here we go again."
Well, except it'd be so different, wouldn't it? Because
different means of transportation.
Well, and you're auditioning for a role yourself then. I mean, nobody really cares who the senator's wife is once he's elected. You really care who the president's and the vice president's wives are, or spouses, I should say. And the joke is to be in our campaign, there was a lot of pressure at first for Sherrod to run for governor. And they were just going to have to ship me to Europe for 9 months so he could run, because I don't think I'm exactly first lady material.
Well, I mean, then the subject of your column really would be a heartbreaker. Because that way, if you had to give it up, for the camp, you'd have to give it up for good.
If he were, sure.
I can't imagine you doing that. That would be so. Well, he didn't do that, so all's good right now. You mentioned that nobody cares about Senate wives, which gives me just the perfect way to get into. Well, there is one particular Senate spouse, Bill Clinton.
Sure.
How do you envision a man being first lady? Well, how do you see reshaping that role?
I look forward to his setting the model, just as his wife will, for the first woman president of the country. It's great to think of them both charting new trails, and I don't feel sorry for him. I think he's had a lot of attention. Yeah. He seems to still be able to get a lot of attention, so I'm not too worried about that. And I don't get too caught up in the notion that it's going to be really hard for him to figure this out. He'll figure it out.